recording. All right, well, we're here, we have a forum, so if he calls in, we'll take his call. So why don't we get started with the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. If Gary Ladder calls in, we'll include him in the meeting, and Joseph is absent. So with that, we'll get started. Right. Public comments, as we have a member of the public. Did you wish to speak, ma'am?
She's making a presentation today.
Oh, okay. You've been joined by Mayor Lumpers.
All of that. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Did you guys congratulate me?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. All right, our first order of business, the approval of the minutes from the September 11th meeting.
Propose we accept them as written.
All right. So we'll accept the minutes. New business, presentation from the Menlo Park Transportation, or on the Menlo Park Transportation Master Plan.
So we have,
I'll turn it over to you.
we have Christiane Choi from Menlo Park to give an update on the efforts that they're going through with regards to transportation master plan. And so we have a PowerPoint presentation that's been, you have a copy, it'll be put up on the screen for the public. There was one slight change in terms of the order of slides, but it's
I'm not sure which one do I hit.
it's the black one.
Oh, hold on. Okay. All right, so good evening, committee members. I'm Christiane Choi. I'm a senior transportation engineer with the City of Menlo Park's Transportation Division. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about our transportation master plan. Tonight I'm just going to go over kind of the background purpose of our master plan, some project highlights that kind of overlap with your town, and then also what the next steps are. So first, just a little background. Our city council went through a update of our general plan of a few years ago called Connect Menlo. They adopted that update in late 2016, and as part of that update, it included the update of our circulation element, which included a number of goals, policies, and programs, and the highest priority program out of the circulation element was our transportation master plan. And so the purpose of our transportation master plan is really to kind of identify projects to address the transportation challenges in our city. And we also have a sidewalk master plan and a bicycle development plan that hasn't been updated for a number of years, and so this transportation master plan would also be covering the updates to those plans as one comprehensive plan for our city. In addition, our transportation impact fee has not been updated for several years, and so the projects that are identified in the master plan would then be used to help update our impact fee, and then that fee then would be charged by to new development to help us pay for these improvements. So just kind of a background on how we got to where we are today. As I mentioned, our council adopted our general plan update in late 2016, and then we identified the transportation master plan as the highest priority project. So we initiated that project in early 2017. W-Trans was selected as our consultant for the project, And in summer of 2017, we went out to our community to ask for input on our transportation challenges, their concerns and issues. And at the same time, our council created an oversight and outreach committee. This committee was charged with providing advisory input to the Transportation Master Plan process, and also to help reach out to the community to encourage input and participation in the Transportation Master Plan process. So WTrans also collected a variety of transportation background information that's out there, counts, collision history, various transportation studies that are out there that have been completed by the city. As I mentioned, we have our bicycle development plan and our sidewalk master plan. They looked at those reports and put together kind of an existing conditions summary for us. And then, sorry about that. Okay, so then as part of the input that we received from both the community and our committee, we identified 3 goals for the Transportation Master Plan, and these goals also take into account our circulation element and our climate action plan goals. And so the 3 goals include safety, which is we adopted Vision Zero, where we're looking at eliminating traffic fatalities and reducing non-fatal collisions by 50% by the year 2040. And then sustainability, which is to meeting our climate action plan goals of a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions of 27%. And then also a mobility choice goal, which is accommodating all modes and all abilities.
Okay, sorry, ask a question about that. When you talk about reducing greenhouse emissions by a certain percentage, is that like on a per person basis, or is that in total? So as you're growing so much on the eastern side of Menlo Park?
So I think it was based on a certain year, to getting it down to a certain year. I think it was from 2005 goals, and it was identified in our climate action plan. So we're kind of just being consistent.
Even as the city grows, you're still going to try to do that.
Right, and the city is also updating our climate action plan, so those goals may change, and so the idea is to kind of do these in parallel to keep up with whatever goal we do change it to. We also identified 9 prioritization criteria. These criteria are going to be used to help score the projects and then determine their ranking and priority as we move towards the implementation phase. And so I won't go over all of these, but there's a bunch of them, and some of them also relate to kind of the goals that we mentioned with safety and greenhouse gas reduction and transportation sustainability. So I think oh no, I already went through the slide that we renumbered. So anyway, so as part of how we develop the strategies and recommendations, I think I mentioned already, we collected various studies that reports of past projects, as well as some regional projects like the Samtrans Dumbarton Corridor Study. MTC is also doing a Dumbarton Forward study. And then we also looked at potentially the right-of-way constraints, as well as the collision patterns and the traffic volumes. And so our consultant had identified kind of 4 high-priority corridors in the city: Bayfront, Expressway, Willow Road, El Camino Real, and Sand Hill Road. I think those are probably to be expected. Those are the major regional streets in our city, and so they definitely tended to have also the higher volumes as well as the higher number of traffic collisions. And then our consultant, along with city staff, kind of developed recommendations for other corridors in the city as well. And so over this past summer, we have been kind of updating our list of projects, draft recommendations, and strategies, and we have met with our oversight and outreach committee 3 times to kind of go over various parts of the city, just to give us enough time to kind of focus on different areas, both from like the north, central, and south area. And so now I want to just kind of go over some of the project highlights that I think might be interested in by the town, since they either are borders the city or is right next to the city, or is partly within the town. So first there's Bay, Sonoma, and Ringwood. So this intersection we looked at as possibly putting in a traffic signal there, and it's currently a unsignalized intersection with 5 legs, and so the idea is to convert the Sonoma and Ringwood leg into a one-way couplet, so one direction is going away from the intersection, the other street is going towards the intersection. So then it would be more like a typical 4-leg intersection. This improvement would also add left turn lanes on 2 of the legs, which would require removal of some landscaping and affect the property owners closest to the intersection. And then a couple of other improvements at Middlefield and Ravenswood, and Middlefield and Ringwood. There's some bicycle improvements there. I know the town has a improvement for the bike lanes on Middlefield Road already, and these would complement those improvements. I think it doesn't necessarily preclude one or the other. And so one would be to kind of add a jug handle left turn for bicycles. This would be on the Menlo Atherton High School side to allow those who want to turn left from Middlefield onto Ravenswood. We would add this kind of what we call a jug handle so that the bikes can kind of turn around on the side, and then we'd add some bicycle signal so that they could head in the correct direction on Ravenswood. In addition, we're looking at removing the pork chop island and installing a right turn overlap phase on Ravenswood. And then at Middlefield and Ringwood, looking at installing 2-stage left turn cue boxes for the bikes. This is to give them access to the Ringwood bike lanes and then over to the Ringwood overcrossing. A couple other projects that I wanted to mention is on Glenwood and Laurel. There's identified a need for a traffic signal there, and so that's one thing. And then also for El Camino Real, our council had reviewed bike lanes on El Camino Real a few years ago, and their preferred alternative was buffered bike lanes and the removal of parking. And so that's what's been identified in our transportation master plan as well. And I also want to mention that all of these projects, while we've identified them, they still would need to go through the community process before they'd actually be installed. And then we have a list of, I think, 170 plus projects in our draft working paper. And we've, based on the review from our Outreach and Oversight Committee, we've gotten, and also our Complete Streets Commission, we've gotten some requests for additional projects. So a couple of other projects that weren't in this draft working paper that I wanted to highlight are adding a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Valparaiso at Pulitzer, and then also adding sidewalks or a pedestrian pathway on the north side of Ensenada between Laurel and the city limits. And so then, just finally, I just want to mention what our next steps will be. We plan to go back to our Oversight and Outreach Committee in December to kind of go over the updated list of recommendations. As I mentioned, we've added some projects. And then the next step after that would be to go out to the community for kind of a in-person workshop as well as an online open house, with the goal of releasing a draft master plan in the spring. We would then again get feedback on that draft master plan from our Complete Streets Commission and our committee, and then we would hopefully get the council to review and adopt the master plan in the summer with the impact fee updates to follow in the fall. So that concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
You mentioned impact fees. Who would those be imposed on?
So today we impose them on new development. So any projects, it's based, right now our current fee is based on added square footage or dwelling units. For hotels, it would be based on the number of rooms added.
Is that assessed on both residential and commercial?
Yes,
projects?
that's correct. So we have a different rate depending on also single family versus multifamily housing units, or there's different rates for whether it's like an office use or a research and development use or medical office.
I actually have a few questions. If you want. On these projects, are any of these projects, are they all waiting for this spring, fall 2019 implementation timeframe, or are some of them going to be done more quickly than that?
So I think the ones that I listed in the presentation are all, none of them are like in any kind of funding position to be built. There are a few that are included in our working paper, which I'm sure all of you read, the 170 plus. Some of them do include funded projects, and so those would definitely be under construction. They're actually already funded. We wanted to be able to highlight projects that are under construction so that people wouldn't be like, oh, why aren't you doing anything here? So they understand that there are things being done. It's just not going to be part of our fee program.
And my next question is, as the council considers, or whomever, considers the approval of new projects that are going to add to traffic and add everything else, what's the role of this master plan or your anybody who's focused on transportation for the city?
Yeah, so the idea is that we would update the fee program, and so that the new development would then pay that fee. I mean, the idea is, of course, that these projects are much bigger than our current fee right now can cover, and so then they would be paying those fees and helping to pay for those improvements.
And what, if any, opportunity would a neighboring town like Atherton have, who's going to be affected by these projects, to either comment on or participate in those fees?
So, each, especially the larger projects, are being undergoing like a review right now. They're going through an EIR process, and so at that time, the town would definitely be asked to respond.
Very little to do with the fees.
Right, but that would be part of it. I mean, there might be other mitigations that are required, and but if there's like projects, I think like the joint projects, the ones that are close to like say Middlefield and Ravenswood or Glenwood and Laurel, that would be kind of a shared cost, right? Because part of it's
I guess
town.
actually, if I could, I don't think that's really worked. I mean, and respectfully, like Greenheart, big project right on our doorstep. The EIR pointed out traffic implications specifically in Atherton and recommended remediation in Atherton, and we were told by the city of Menlo Park that it was against the law for them to share any of the fee income with us. And they pointed us to the developer and said, go talk to the developer. The developer said, you don't approve, you have nothing to do with whether my project gets approved. So he said, I feel bad for you, but I'm not paying you any money. And the end result is there's a major development, and there's others now right along Encinal and elsewhere that are actually pretty good sized projects that will be, increasing traffic and congestion in Atherton. And we seem to have no input in the approval of the project, the mitigation of the harm of the project, or anything else. And I'm just wondering if there's any way, do you see any way for us to get input in or anything else?
So I think, at least for the Station 1300 project, I think there were some mitigations that were identified within the town, and that we have collected some fees that, should the town want to pursue those improvements, then we would give those fees to the town. So now with the traffic impact fee, yes, that's correct. I mean, the fees have to go to these projects. I mean, according to the Nexus study, so we can't just give traffic impact fees to some other jurisdiction to use because they're actually tied to the specific project. But I know for like Station 1300, there were some projects where we identified, some percentage that that project was representative of the traffic, and then we collected the money for that. So I think that's how we have typically done it. I'm not, I don't, know if it doesn't work in the past.
It's my observation and request would be, I don't think we've had real input into those, even those mitigating steps are things that we don't want to do. And so it'd be nice if somehow we could be included in the process to get some input, because our neighboring community, which is a great community, I'm not, it's life is the way it is, but it's a great community, but you're approving substantial projects that increase traffic for us, and we have just absolutely no input at all in the project or in any way to mitigate against it that doesn't change the nature of our town. And so it's a real concern for us.
Okay, sure.
I do, because a lot of the projects that you're listing are on borders of Atherton. I mean, Valparaiso and Glenwood and Ravenswood, Ringwood, I'm sorry, and Snow. Yeah, I mean, that's, so do you have to ask Atherton's approval to put a stoplight where we're considered, or are you going to share them, are you going to ask for money too?
Yes, that's why, we have shared these projects with.
So, like I said,
Sorry.
they passed on the document to me, and I've done some review on it, and I've met with Christiane separately about some of the concerns that we have, particularly in relation to the 2 traffic signal projects, making sure that there's adequate outreach to our residents that would be impacted by them. We haven't talked any money. My presumption is that these are things that will be mitigated by developments based on the fees that they collect, provided that we are in agreement that that project is something that we would be happy with if there's an impact to our right-of-way. So, for example, I'll pick an easy one. I think it's the Ravenswood intersection where they want to take out the pork chop. We're redoing
Pork chop means.
the free right turn. So there's some intersections on Middlefield where there's like a triangle place for the pedestrians to wait, and cars can turn right behind them.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so they have a plan to take out that pork chop island and turn it into a regular intersection, so that cars would have to stop before turning right, and pedestrians would be more visible, it would be safer, etc. But the majority of the changes on that traffic signal are in Menlo Park, and Menlo Park right now maintains that traffic signal. We have an existing signal, so there's not really a substantial impact to us with those kinds of improvements.
Like I said, I'm sorry, if traffic increases, there's an impact to us.
I'm not talking about development. I'm talking about the
Understood.
intersection improvement.
But the intersection improvement is tied to a development fee, which is tied to a development, right? I mean, isn't that the way that works?
Yeah.
So approval of development means traffic will get worse for us.
that
even
that,
though
that
it
I'm
makes
not
it-
that I'm not arguing against.
Yeah. By the way, thank you very much for coming in. I feel bad that I just sort of, thank you, I really do appreciate your coming in.
Right.
But this is it's a concern,
Yeah.
it's a
Sure.
fundamental
No,
concern, at least for me, from my perspective
Yeah.
as a council. It's a concern to the city council that Menlo Park has been approving really dramatic development, significant impacts on Atherton. We've had no consultation effectively, as a council at least. Robert, you may have had some of that, but it seems to me the basic fundamental issue is large development on our border.
Yeah.
Okay, great, they put a new stop sign in Menlo Park, but it's still a problem. Yeah.
So we're currently working on our circulation element,
Right.
and so that will feed in. And I'm going to say this is that as we develop our circulation element, we will have some thresholds of significance in terms of impacts that we are intending to adopt.
which will give us
that
standing for an EIR. and
it would
theory.
give us standing for
My
EIR
understanding is
impacts.
as a practical matter, that's very, very difficult to enforce. You know, the best thing you can get is cooperation from your neighbor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Is there a process, or is there consultation with neighboring jurisdictions built into that review process? Or is it strictly just community engagement and the town would just participate in the public process?
So it's both. I mean, so as I mentioned, we're going to go out to the community for all the projects, to talk about all the projects. So it won't just be the ones on the, Atherton border, it'll be all 170 plus projects. But as we go out to actually implement the projects, they will still need to go through an additional approval process, and that's when we would outreach to the affected neighbors. So, because we have a lot of projects where we would have to remove parking or potentially remove landscape that's actually in our right of way, but it's built in our right of way, and so we would need to go through that kind of community process to actually build them. We're not going to just rip things out and just install it. So,
will there be an inventory of those 170 projects available? Or is it
do you
not?
mean more than?
It's
Or-
in the, on your agenda, there was a link to the document.
Okay, and that's a large document?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of.
Read
You're
that. Come on.
gonna read this whole thing? I mean, so a lot of it's
So-
appendices and background information. The main document with all the projects listed and some maps are like kind of the first maybe quarter of the document, because it's like 400 plus pages. But
Are those subject to change, or are those pretty well fixed?
so no, as I mentioned, we're going to go out to our committee in early December. So they had given us feedback from their meetings, plus we also met with our Complete Streets Commission and got feedback from them as well. And so based on all of that feedback, we're going to be adding. So it's no longer 170. It's probably be closer to 200 projects that we're going to be adding to this. And some of them are being refined in the list. There's some clarification that was needed. So this is close, but it's not quite there. And when we go out to the community and we go to our council, it's possible that they may take things away. Like say, oh, we don't want this project, or nobody wants this project. So we'll strike it off the list.
One thought I had is we, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, had a joint meeting with the Menlo Park Transportation Committee.
We did.
And maybe we could do something like that again, where the two transportation committees are talking about the master plan at whenever it seems an appropriate time in the development of the master plan. At least that's
Yeah, I
a
would
thought.
welcome.
Yeah, I can bring that back.
Yeah, by the way, I thought it was a useful meeting of the two groups just to talk, because so much of what you do affects us, and so much of what we do. Like, for example, I looked at your council's preference for a bicycle lane on El Camino, and I'm like, well, that's not gonna do a lot of good if we don't have the same vision.
Sure.
So we should have those kind of conversations.
Right.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Christine. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thanks
your
for
time.
coming.
All right, item 4B, discussion and assessment of the placement and installation schedule for the speed feedback signs.
So I'm going to discuss that. As you know, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee requested the purchase of speed feedback signs, primarily to use on those routes that have been deemed to be bike routes, those streets with sharrows on them. And they're going to be purchasing 7 of them. So far, we've already purchased 3. We'll be purchasing 2 more next year, and then 2 more the following year. I've been working with David Wynn to try to figure out the best location for these signs. On the screen in front of you, and maybe you have this with you, there's a color photo of the town. And all of those little yellow pins represent collisions from September 1st, 2013 to today that were involving a bicycle. There were 30 collisions total between September 1st of 2013 and today. What we looked at the map, and we looked at the streets with sharrows on them, and we came up with 7 different locations for the speed feedback signs to be installed in phases.
And what the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee is asking is that you review the locations and provide any feedback or give them the go-ahead to install these signs in the locations that we've determined. So phase 1, which will be installed as soon as possible, the first sign will be on southbound Middlefield between Encinal and Glenwood. The second will be installed on southbound Alameda near 202 Alameda. And the third one will be installed on westbound Atherton Avenue between Berry and Elena. For phase 2, the summer of 2019, we would install a sign on northbound Elena between Prado Sequoia and Park. And we'd also install a sign on eastbound Selby Lane between Austin and Scherer. And then finally, on phase 3 for the summer of 2020, we would install a sign southbound Emily between Park and McBain and northbound Selby at Tuscaloosa. And those are the locations that we've determined would be best for these signs. And as I said, what we're looking for is your feedback and some discussion and ultimately your approval to go ahead and place these signs in these locations.
So I was just curious on what basis, just the collisions, is that the
Well-
frequency of the collisions? Or?
Well, part of it is collisions, but the other part of choosing these locations is the BPAC wanted to have these speed feedback signs on streets that were determined to be the bike routes and those with the sharrows on them. So looking at all of that, these are the locations that David Wynn and I thought would be best for the town.
And these are not mobile?
No, these are signs that are attached to steel poles which are dug into the ground and they stay there. They're not, I mean, they can be moved. You know, eventually if we place one in a location and we determine that we don't like it there, we can also take another pole and put another pole somewhere else and move the entire assembly, leaving the pole behind or removing the pole altogether and putting it in a different location.
So will each device require a new pole?
Yes,
So it's just a steel?
just a regular steel pole that's put into the ground and the sign. The same thing that as you see them on James Avenue or Encinal or the unit block of Atherton Avenue here, same exact thing.
Are these substantially less expensive than the portable feedback?
So these signs here, I believe, are about $3,000 a piece, whereas the mobile sign that we tow around and can put messages on is almost $20,000 for that one.
We have reviewed another item that we're still considering. They're about $3,000 a piece. They're battery powered, and that you can move them around town. You can strap them to a telephone pole. They do traffic studies, and so it would give us the ability to be more mobile.
These do traffic counts as well?
Yes. Well, the ones that we're considering, I'm not sure.
No,
These do not do traffic counts.
these are just speed advisory signs.
I think that there were, you said there are 30 accidents essentially in 5 years, is that?
Correct.
Are these, what's is an accident a serious thing? I mean, if somebody just falls, what's an accident? Any kind of bicycle?
No, it's any kind of collision involving a bicyclist. Sometimes the bicyclist is injured, and sometimes, they're not. Sometimes they just walk away. Sometimes they're transported to a hospital. Their bike is severely damaged. It just depends on the kind of collision and how they're hit and how they fall and if they're wearing a helmet or not.
Do you have any sense of the 30, how many of those were significant, where there was an injury or a serious risk of an injury,
Without looking at the numbers, just from approving all of the reports, I'd probably say about half of them involved in injury. And of those half, maybe 5 or 6 were serious injuries.
But what we're not mentioning is the fact that a good number of those are caused by the bicyclist.
Right, I mean, they're not gonna be helped all that much by these signs.
No, but I think it's always assumed that the bike was the victim. A good number of those, the bicyclist was at fault, and we do cite some of those for being at fault.
The police department supports these, as I
Yes,
understand, right?
we do.
And it looks like near schools, at least some of them.
Right. Especially signs 4 and 6. We wanted to get those by Sacred Heart and by St. Joseph, so that's why we chose that location there. Number 1 is right down the street from Encinal School, and then number 5 is going to be down the street from Selby, and there's currently a sign on westbound Selby between Austin and the school. So this one will complement the Selby lane, but going the other direction.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't see a problem with these placements, especially considering that we could always move these feedback signs to a different location if needed.
Is there any, are there any studies out there, do people get complacent or do they ignore them after some period of time? I guess where I'm going with that, is it prudent to periodically move them? I know they're on a fixed pole.
I do believe that the longer they stay in one location, the less value they have, because people will go by and see them every day, realize that they don't take pictures, realize that they don't issue citations. But for people who are new to the street, may just be driving the street for the first or second time, I think they have some value. But the longer that they stay in one location, they probably do lose their value, and people probably do become complacent with them.
So, sorry,
No, go ahead.
so is it too late to change to the signs that Chief was talking about?
Well, we have 3 of these in stock already that just have not been installed. I don't know what the price difference is between the ones that Chief is discussing and what these ones are. So that is something that would have to be looked at. We also have to look at, increased man hours as far as going out and downloading these things and compiling the data and everything else. So the more complicated we get with the signs, the more work it becomes down the road.
I do agree. I think it's important to be able to move them. And I think that's something that we'll have a discussion about the product that we've been approached with. And because the cost is about the same, but it gives us the ability to move them, especially if we're seeing a high traffic or high accident area that we can move them to. But we'll discuss the details and figure that out.
Is there an opportunity, you say you have 3 in stock, before the other ones are purchased, could they be the movable ones, or are you thinking about additional ones?
Probably have to be additional because they're solar powered, correct?
These ones are solar powered. Have we ordered the 3 for this year yet, though?
I think we're waiting to get the approval on the locations.
So yeah, if that's a decision we make, we wouldn't have to order the next 4. We could possibly change to movable ones.
But even the solar, it sounds like they're movable with the
They are
pole.
movable, you just
we
have
could
to take
identify
the stuff
some-
off
Right.
and move them to a new location, right?
Yeah, I think there's still good options.
So any discussion on that? I mean, I kind of like the idea of the movable ones.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the police department does have a portable radar unit that they mount on poles to assess traffic speeds and volumes. And so that is something that they use on a regular basis, put it up for a week just to gather the data so that we can look at traffic patterns and if there's excessive speeding and that kind of thing. And so what's good about that, without having the speed feedback information, is that you're getting it without telling people to slow down.
I mean, my thought is Chief, if you evaluate this other one that's movable and you think that's preferable, I wouldn't want to delay the installation of these, while you do another study or evaluation, but if it makes sense, to buy the movable ones. And what's the difference between a fixed and a movable one? Is it
Well, the
just
solar one's actually
mounted?
movable because it isn't powered by electricity, wired electricity, so you can't move it by a pole. The other device, the advantage is it's a little more, it can do different messaging and different studies than the solar can't. It's just a standalone. But you can also move it. You can strap it to a tree, you can strap it to a telephone pole, and it's existing with the same effect. So we'll definitely take a look at that, and then I never really considered it before, but now with working with Robert and the 3 that we have, it definitely can be moved, just a little bit of work. And that pole will still stay there, we can just move it around.
So, would it not be possible that the additional 4 that are yet to be purchased, they can be those movable ones, and then we just
It could be,
We can investigate that.
yeah, and we'll report back. next meeting.
Were you looking for a decision from us tonight then
On the
these
locations, yeah.
Need a motion or?
I think we're, yeah.
I move that, you know, we accept
Yeah.
the locations that are chosen in the order.
So he was expecting, probably, can we get him
Oh,
always?
is it?
Okay.
Thought I had this, as you look at this, it's really striking how much of this is El Camino
I
Middle.
mean, oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially Middlefield.
Might wanna
Yeah,
do
it really
that
is,
so
it
we
really,
don't
I mean,
tease him.
so I hope we're focused
Because
on
he's
that, because that
climbing
seems to be
trees,
where
so
the.
text
Yeah, we have our improvement project on Middlefield.
Yeah.
And then we had a project to look at complete streets on El Camino.
So that won't take 20 or 30 years.
So, you know,
It's
El
called
Camino
planning.
is a state highway.
Yeah.
You
know what the hot beacons have made any difference at all?
I know how to do it.
In high school,
I can just call him.
you know, people driving more
Just
slowly,
time the meetings
crossing
and
stuff
stuff.
out. Is there any indication there?
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
I'm sorry, we were discussing, because Gary was expecting us to call him, although we told him to call us, so we have a number, I should just call him, put him on the speaker, because I'm getting bounces from Teresa.
You know what I'm thinking? We should probably use the phone that's up there. And put him on speakerphone.
He's down 9.
Yeah, but don't give the phone number out over there.
Are you trained on that, Jim?
No.
Here, I'll do it.
I wouldn't know.
Followed by the technology. I was just asking.
Sorry, yeah.
I was just saying, you know, I'm looking at El Camino and I'm wondering if we have put up hot beacons and a couple of things there. I wonder if that has any impact on this at all. Or if it would logically, I can't think of necessarily why it would.
I think we could do an analysis on the before and after on the
Yeah.
hot beacons that we have.
I mean, the beacons, I was just out there today, and I was out yesterday on Veterans Day. It seems like they're becoming a lot more normalized to
I
it,
heard that.
quite a bit.
Hi, hello, Gary, Jim McLaughlin.
Hi, thanks for calling.
Sure, you're joining the meeting in progress. We're on item 4B.
Which is what?
The mounted speed display signs. We were asked to approve locations.
Yeah, okay, I'm so sorry that I never was connected with.
Sure. I'm sorry there was a foul up there.
I think the problem was that it was a problem on my side and that the response from the town was going into my spam folder and I only just discovered that. I'm sorry.
All right, all right.
Hey Gary, Mike here, just saying hi.
Hi.
So I was just talking to the chief, I apologize about whether anything we've done along El Camino. If you look at the map of bike accidents, El Camino is a concentration. And this is just my memory. It feels like a few years ago we had more accidents on El Camino. We haven't had as many bike accidents lately. I wonder if that somehow was related to the hot beacons or anything else that's been going on in El Camino, or if it's just one of those, you know, quirks.
I don't think the hot beacons are contributing to the reduction. I think it may just be one of those things where sometimes there's a crash and sometimes there's not. You know, we never can, you know, determine where they were. And a couple of those crashes, you know, were bicyclists, especially the person that got killed there at Isabella when he rode his bike across the street and got hit by a car. That was the most major bike crash that we had on that street. But several of those crashes along El Camino on bicyclists have been the bicyclist's fault because they're riding the wrong way on the road.
Right.
So somebody's making a right-hand turn off a side street and they don't see the bicyclist coming on the wrong side and they pull out and the bicyclist hits the car and then we have a crash.
Right. No, I get that. I'm just wondering, I guess part of me is hoping that somehow the hot beacons are slowing down the people who are flying through El Camino. Probably.
Well, I mean, it's certainly giving
Or
an
the other enforcement
it's
action.
giving an opportunity for pedestrians to cross the street
Yes.
in a safer manner than beforehand.
And our motorists are very creative, more than once. It does happen, I've seen it twice. They come to turn left and they push the button to activate so they can go.
Just an observation, I'm surprised at how many pedestrians are reluctant to activate the hot beacon.
I haven't seen that. I mean, even they're figuring out, because when you do activate it, it isn't like it goes right away. There's a delay of, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 seconds.
It depends on the flow of
Depends
traffic.
on
That's just the flow of traffic.
Right,
Yeah,
it
it's
depends on the
it's
traffic.
not as long. Down in Redwood City, they have similar beacons,
Yeah.
and they take a lot longer, I feel like. You push the button there, you can be waiting for 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm seeing. They've activated the button and they're waiting for the signal to
Mhm.
activate.
Yeah.
So, but as you said, they're getting more normalized. There's more popping up in different locations, including Redwood City and up and down the El Camino corridor. So,
All right, so, we approve the locations and you'll take a look at the devices that are available
And we'll
if you
report.
think it makes sense to get the.
I think it does, and we'll report back next week. I think it's good discussion.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. All right. All right, looks like that brings us to the police traffic unit reports. Sergeant Trocler.
Okay. So let's do September 1st. In September, we had 5 traffic complaints. All of the traffic complaints are listed there on the paper. There were 2 arrests made for driving under the influence during September. They weren't the result of traffic collisions, and both of the arrested persons were transported to First Chance. No truck stop details. Officer Metzger, Officer Goddard, and Reserve Officer Boyle were assigned to traffic units. Their scheduled number of hours and also how many total combined sites they wrote is also listed on there. We had 15 traffic collisions in September. 4 involved injuries, 3 were hit and runs, and none were DUI related. And of those collisions, 3 occurred during the morning commute period, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and 7 occurred during the afternoon commute period, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., and we had 621 traffic stops during the month of September. Moving on to October, we had 2 traffic complaints for October, and those are listed on there. 2 arrests were made for driving under the influence. Neither was a result of a traffic collision. One person was transported to jail, and the other was actually transported to the hospital and released at the hospital. No truck stop details were performed. Our traffic officers were assigned to traffic, and again, their scheduled hours and their combined sites are listed. We had 7 traffic collisions, 2 involved injuries, 3 were hit and runs, and none were DUI related. Of those collisions, 2 occurred during the morning commute period, and 3 occurred during the afternoon commute period, and we had 570 citations issued in October.
You know, with the holidays coming up, will there be any joint task force type operations?
So there are no official joint DUI strike teams anymore like there used to be years ago. But what we are doing this year is starting in December and every Friday and Saturday through, I believe, December 15th, I want to say, up until January 5th, we're going to be doing overtime. So two people can sign up on each Friday and Saturday to go out and work DUI enforcement within Atherton. So we'll be doing that this year like we did last year.
And that's in conjunction with the county's, right, the STEP program?
Right, STEP does their once a month enforcement in 2 cities, and they may be doing a little bit of DUI stuff this year, but there is no official OTS sanctioned DUI strike teams anymore.
Right. But I believe I read the STEP program is going to have a DUI, focus their activities on DUI activities during the holidays, and so our dates that we've identified are in concert with theirs. We've also talked about doing checkpoints, which I've always wanted to do. They're not allowed in Washington State, and as you're aware, they're allowed here, and we're still working through that. I think it would be a good tool, partnering with the Highway Patrol and some other agencies, so we'll look into that down the road.
Great.
I did hear a couple comments about our collision picture, September versus October, and we talked about that quite a bit. And September's back to school, a lot of traffic out and about, and if you noticed, our traffic stats were up too because we put an emphasis out as well. But we attribute that to people getting used to summer, all the traffic, all the parents, and we do seem to see a spike during that time, and then it goes down in October.
Right. Any comments or questions about the traffic reports? All right. Well, I think that concludes our agenda. I was just going to ask Gary if he had anything.
I have just a couple of
Sure.
things. Gary, this is, I think, some of it's part of, for you, somewhere on the agenda, I don't have it in front of you, we should have time for this committee to raise issues that we can discuss at the next.
That's a
Future agenda items.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's something the committee, I hope the committee will take seriously because it's the committee's opportunity to put something on the agenda to discuss. So if there's something you want to discuss, the way to get it on the agenda is to mention it now so it can be on the agenda at the next meeting. And that's something I'd urge you to take seriously.
Because I think your intent, if I remember the conversations right, because you're spending a lot of your time volunteering, and we want to make sure that it's used wisely, and I think it was a great idea to.
Yeah, that's it. And then, sorry, as an overarching, which will come to a couple other things I want to mention. I'm concerned the committee, and AC we have, like Joe did make it today. Gary, thanks for calling in. I'm worried that we're not using the time of, your time's important. And I want to make sure we're using it properly. I feel like we're not getting the highest and best value use out of it. So there's two things I wanted to make you aware of. One is this opportunity to put anything you want on the agenda for the next meeting, which is something I think you should think long and hard about. I think that's an important function of this committee. And the other is, I want to let you know that there are 2 studies coming, which will be hitting us in January or so, that actually affect the role of the committee pretty fundamentally. One of which is what do we call it? The townwide
Well, we
study.
have the townwide study, traffic study, we mentioned part of the circulation element, to look at how much pass-through traffic we have or cut-through traffic to see how we can try and balance and mitigate that. And Mike, if you want, the second study is the Alameda corridor.
Study, which is near and dear to Gary's heart, I know, if no one else is. But the idea is that we're going to come to you with studies that are more, it might be their broader picture. What's the role of, what's the role of the government with regard to traffic in Atherton and how should we be viewing it? And what steps should we take to mitigate, if any, and I'm talking about that. And those are coming to us early the next year. So I just want to make sure, I'm worried that this committee's not feeling, as valued as it should be. And I just want to let you know there's stuff coming that I think will be a higher use that I think you'll find, he'll be there teeth into when it comes. So I just wanted those are my thoughts. Yes, Gary?
Mike?
Yes.
So in the past, when we've attempted to proactively address things, one of the responses that we've gotten is that our committee is supposed to only address things that the town council has specifically asked us to address, and therefore things that we think that could be solutions, if we weren't asked for them, were deemed unwelcome. So if I am very supportive of being proactive about recommending things, but that hasn't been welcome in the past.
Yeah. Well, with regard to the studies, the council has asked for input on that, right? That's part of the function of the committee. With regard to putting things on the agenda, that is an opportunity to get proactive. And it may be that it's something that the staff looks at and says, we can't discuss that for whatever reason. But without that first step, it won't get on the agenda at all. So let's take that.
I welcome it too.
Yeah.
To Gary's point, that represents a shift, and I think I welcome it.
Yeah, because I think I got the opposite feeling last meeting that it really somebody from the public had to bring it up, an issue, and so we could present ourselves as the public, not as a member of the committee.
Well, if it's on the agenda, if it's agendized properly, you can talk about it. So.
Okay. Well, then I will take a moment here to ask if there right now are any ideas for future agenda items, and it doesn't have to happen right now. We have a 48-hour notice period, or well, it should really happen when typically we do the agenda setting.
Either they can bring it up here, or separately they can communicate to you as the chair items that they would like to include, and we can discuss it in the agenda setting.
And as we typically do the agenda setting, 7 to 10 days in advance of the meeting dates. So if you have any items, I would ask that you get them before that, before we have the agenda setting meeting. So I don't know if there's anything now that either of you here would like to have considered for a future agenda item.
I'm trying to still formulate my thought as to how this would to translate into an agenda item, but this relates to the conversation that we had with the Menlo Park lady that was here, and Mike bringing it up about our township having a say and a seat at the table for the projects that they're doing. And because, for instance, sitting where I am, and they picked Sand Hill Road over Marsh. I don't know if does Marsh fall under Menlo Park jurisdiction?
A good chunk of it is in the county.
Maybe that's why. Because that's a
Mhm.
bigger choke point and a bigger impact on our township's traffic situation.
Yeah,
And
when I looked at their study, there were a couple of streets that appeared to be missing, including Valparaiso. That's shared the whole stretch, so we raised that to them.
I will, work on, I agree, I think that's where the, I think that should be part of our discussion, how do we make ourselves heard and know that Menlo Park is considering our concerns, what's the method, what's the process. I hate to be one more, I don't think it should be, that we're just one more person speaking at a community meeting. I think there should be a more formal, process involved. So I don't know if anything is required, under the law, under the.
I get that we as a council have been really struggling with that. I mean, it's hard because, and the truth is that they're not required to listen to us. As I understand the law with regard to development fees, they are obligated to spend the development fees that they collect within their own jurisdiction, so they couldn't even, and that it is true that we have the opportunity to get input through the environmental impact assessment process, but that's basically the threat of litigation, and it just doesn't really work very well. It's something we've really struggled. We've worked hard with the city attorney to try to come up with a strategy, and as Robert mentioned, one thing you can do apparently is you can basically measure where your traffic is now, and then if it gets worse in the future, you have a baseline you can point to and say you're making it worse. And it's a long-term process and it's sort of indirect. So any ideas people have, I'd love to hear. I don't think it's working now, candidly. And that's, we have a Menlo Park, don't forget Redwood City's right on the other side of us, and they're doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Can I ask Mike about the Alameda corridor report you referred to? Is that include, I don't know, because I know in the past they talked about a roundabout and
I think there's a roundabout in there. I mean, I don't know what it says exactly.
Does it include the school? I don't know.
Yeah, it goes, it's supposed to go, and Brian, please correct me, but the way it came about was we were looking at the school and issues relating to the school.
Yeah.
And then I and others made the point of, if we're gonna look at that, we should probably look at the length of the corridor there because they're all interconnected. And so, boy, it's been a long time now. I don't know how long we started, maybe a year ago or something.
Yeah, so the study's under development now, and as Mike said, we've started getting some of the draft work product, and so our intent hopefully is to come to you in January, your next meeting, and have our consultants here give a presentation, and it's an opportunity for us to get input on those studies.
But it's going from where to where? It's going border to border?
Border to border.
It's going border to border.
It actually looks at, kind of starts at Woodside, even though we don't have any control over Woodside and Hull, which are two signals, and then it goes to the other end of town on Alameda.
Yeah. But Gary, it goes through your favorite intersection.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I say that the study includes a study of your favorite intersection, which is the Atherton Ave, Alameda, yeah, right there.
Yeah, and you said that there were two studies, so is that one of them?
That is one of them, yes.
And what's the other one?
It's a town-wide traffic study assessment for our circulation element.
And how does one understand the status of these studies and provide input to it?
We are hoping to bring the two studies to your next meeting.
Oh, both of them to the next meeting?
We're still working that out with our consultant, but that's the hope that we'll be able to do that.
But what's their status? As a draft?
We've started seeing some draft work product from them in terms of, and it's not on the agenda, so I'm a little hesitant to talk too far on it.
It will not be in final when it comes to the.
No,
committee,
it won't
correct?
be.
Yeah.
So I have on a number of occasions suggested that we focus on a couple of intersections where especially during morning commutes, there's a long backup at stop signs when people are trying to get out onto Valparaiso and El Camino. Many of these intersections could benefit from having a split right versus left turn, such that the right turners could just get by the people waiting to do a left turn. I think many intersections are amenable to it being improved in that way, and that ought to be part of this study.
I think he's precluded by law from answering you, Gary.
But
Gary,
they
are you proposing to put that on the next agenda then, Gary?
If it could get there, that would be great.
Okay. I'll be in touch with you before the next agenda setting meeting to refine that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. You know, something I'm interested in is that on Las Pulgas, there at the school with Camino del Lago, and maybe an update on that. I'm not sure how
okay.
we're at on that. Carolyn, if you have anything right now, or
No, I don't. I look
if-
forward to the reports, actually.
Okay. If you have anything,
Yeah.
please get in touch with me. We'll get it on there. All right, Gary, did you have anything else?
One other question is, was today's meeting on videotape so that I could get to see the Menlo Park presentation later?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great.
All right.
So sorry about my not being on the call sooner, and I look forward to seeing you. Oh, and I should also mention, unfortunately, at the next meeting, I'm going to be in South Africa, so it'll be 4 a.m. there, but it's 6 a.m. in Atherton, so I'm not sure I'll be able to call it.
All right. Where in the world is Gary Louder?
What is the date of the next meeting?
Pardon?
What is the date of the next meeting?
The 8th?
January 8th.
I think it's a
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it is January.
All right. All right, well, if there's nothing further, then we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
See you. So when is your swearing in, sir?
Probably the meeting next month. They haven't.
When is that?
The third Tuesday of the month. I'm not sure which day.
Day or something. Sworn in, is that?
You know what, that might be an issue. It might be pushed into January. They haven't told